welcome back everybody to the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, Ben Newman. Now, guys, for our special guest this week, I bring on another person that I went to high school with. He was a year below me. He played basketball for the Cougars and now just wrapped up his senior season at the University of Southern Indiana for basketball as well. Please welcome my special guest, Mr. Jacob Polakovich. Jake, how you doing today?
Good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you coming on. Your stats alone have really impressed me this season. I've been following your career a little bit, especially this year, though, so it's really great to have you on. Just to start it off, the season just wrapped up for you guys, and, unfortunately didn't make it to March Madness, but you did just say that before we start recording that you will be in a different tournament coming up soon. But how would you describe the season as a whole this year?
It was fun. It was really cool. Honestly, it's I'm a part of the first team in my university's history to be in Division One. We're still in that transition period, and I don't know, to be a part of that whole process in itself has kind of made this season really special because when I look back at this in 20, 20, 30 years, 10, 15 years, how many years it is, and I can kind of realize that wow, I was a part of this transition. I was a part of history to make that happen. And we were part of the first Division One win. We were made the first ever conference tournament in school history. We did all these cool things to help grow the university and grow the program. And looking back, to be able to say that I was a part of that is really, it's a surreal experience, especially with how much I've loved my experience here at this school and in the city. It's been a blessing to be a part of, to say the least, honestly.
Yeah, it's amazing. I actually didn't realize that, and that's really amazing that this was the first season as a Division One school. That's incredible to hear. But kind of going into, I guess, just the history of you. I mean, you grew up in Grand Rapids. Talk about your background growing up and kind of how it played into your love of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved basketball. It like goes back to stories my mom talking about me dribbling up and down the street when I'm 3, 4 years old. There's a million stories like that where I've always loved basketball. It's always a special place in my heart. I played a lot of other sports growing up. I played football, lacrosse, baseball, all that stuff growing up. But the only one that ever really stuck with me from since I started having memories to now has been basketball. And it's you know it I say the word blessing a lot, but it's because I truly feel like I'm blessed to be able to play this game all the way through college, to be able to have an opportunity to play this game after college professionally, to be able to do all these things, and the fact that it all started out with an orange ball, and that I've given a lot to this game, but I feel like it's given me tenfold in return because of the opportunities it's given me, and Grand Rapids in general, playing in Grand Rapids, and the support it's given me, and the people I've met back home that make it so hard to leave every time. All of that because of basketball. It's is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, you're kind of born to play it too, standing at 6'9". It. I mean, because I've always loved basketball too, but obviously I didn't get the height like you did, unfortunately. Um, but kind of diving a little bit deeper into that, what really was it about the sport of basketball that you just love so much?
Yeah. So I mean, I always tell people that I was probably naturally better at football. Like when I first picked up a basketball, I didn't know what to do with it. But with football, I feel like I was naturally big enough and strong enough that I didn't really have to put much into it to be decent at it. And with basketball, I love that I can go put in 4 or 5 hours in the gym and then immediately see that I got improvement from that. I can go play in a game and watch film on that game and then immediately learn from that for the next game. I just loved how quick the feedback was, and it was in basketball. I felt like if I shot 0 for 12 that night, I could sit there and look at myself in the mirror and be like, oh yeah, that's my fault. Like I should have been in the gym more. I can control this. And and I don't know. It's kind of just been one of those things where I fell in love with not just the sport, but the grind that comes along with the sport and all the stuff outside of the 40 minutes we play on the court. It's kind of become like this big escape from every issue because at the end of the day, you can't control what happens outside of the court. You can't control what happens every day in your life, but I can always control what I do in basketball, and I can always control how much effort I put forth in that.
Going over that too, more into your upbringing, growing up, who were some of maybe your favorite basketball players to watch?
Yeah, the easy one is Kobe. I always loved watching Kobe, but it was funny. I was talking to my teammates last night. One of my big favorites was Dirk Nowitzki. Um, I just love that man. He was all business. He showed up. He he'd drop 40, win a game, and go about his business. He never heard anything bad about him. You never really heard anything about him outside of basketball. And I loved how serious he took the game from the time he was a kid up until he was retired in 45. And like at the end of the day, there was a ESPN 30 for 30, I think it was, where it was about him and his shooting coach and all the stuff they went through to make it so that he was basically unguardable and no one could touch his post fade ever. And I remember watching that when I was really young, and that's kind of what sent me down the road where I just started loving watching him play from that point on.
One of the most unstoppable moves in basketball history. I remember, especially in high school, like late grade school, or early high school, trying to like adopt that little post fade with the knee up and stuff. I mean, even just his regular jump shot. I mean, he was obviously 7 feet tall. He kind of shot it from over his shoulder, so like nobody could block that shot.
Yeah, he that finals run was basically all because of that shot, that
hmm
fadeaway.
hmm Now, like we mentioned, you grew up in Grand Rapids, both of us being Catholic Central grads, of course. But obviously, you touched on it a little bit, but dive a little bit more deep in it. What other sports did you play in high school, and kind of why did you come back to basketball more and more over these other sports?
Yeah, well, I played football in high school. My freshman year, sophomore year, my freshman year, I broke my right ankle pretty bad. Um, Ended up coming back from that and played football again my sophomore year, and I played I think about half the season on varsity. And it just to me at that point in my career, I was starting to kind of realize that basketball was going to be what I wanted to go into, what I wanted to do, and how I wanted to fund my college, how what I wanted to be my career eventually one day, hopefully. And I decided that as much as I enjoy playing football, as much as my friends played football, I mean, as good as the team was too, we had a really good team, you know that.
hmm
And I just kind of decided that for me, it was best for my career and my future to just go focus on basketball. And you know, and I'm the first guy to say that growing up, everyone should play multiple sports. I think that's really important for everyone. You shouldn't focus on a sport from 2 years old all the way up. But once I was at that point where I was 16, 17 years old, and it was starting to become time to talk to these coaches, talking to all these people and these mentors, trying to figure out what I want to do with my college career. It made sense to me to just kind of focus on that. And honestly, looking back, if I bet I would have been here still if I played football. But it in the time, I think it was the right decision, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know how you were recruited out of high school, but you did originally choose to play at University of Indianapolis. And what made you make that decision to play there over maybe other potential schools at the time?
Yeah. So Coach Gerard is actually my current coach right now. Coach G, we call him. So he recruited me. He was at UIndy when I was in high school, and they started recruiting me probably the summer going into my senior year. And he honestly, from the start, I could tell with him it was more than basketball. A lot of times guys will call you and they'll start talking and trying to sell their pitch, and you're like, all right, this guy just cares about if I can put a ball in the hoop or not. Which at the end of the day, what people fail to realize is that these coaches feed their family based on how we play. So it makes sense, but that's not what I want to play for. And so talking to him, I kind of realized that he cares about me. This dude really cares about me. He really wants me to do good things. He's in coaching for the players, not just for a paycheck. And I kind of narrowed that list down and found the guys that were like that. And once I got the list like 4 or 5 guys, I sat down with my mom and I was like, all right, mom, it's time to make a decision. And a little bit before that was when I remember we were talking yesterday about when my dad passed away at the visit to Ferris State University. And shortly after that visit, when that happened, probably I didn't hear about him for from probably a week after that. And he called me and didn't even talk basketball at all. A lot of coaches were starting to reach back out to me and just start talking basketball again. He just kind of started talking about how I was doing, how my family was doing, and started trying to talk to me about what I needed to do to be, to kind of become a grown man at that young age of 16, 17 years old, how to be a grown man, how to, how to grow up fast and how to kind of take on that part of life. And, you know, when I realized that with him, the decision was kind of already made. I probably committed a few months after that just because I want to do it after the season anyways. And so I played 2 years at UIndy with him. And this is going into the year COVID starts. It was my sophomore season. And we became the 1 seed in the Midwest. So the Division II tournament works. It's broken up into, so basically the Midwest region, you need to be in the top 8 teams in your region to be in the tournament. And we ended up getting the 1 seed, and the 1 seed gets to host the Midwest region. So we're at UND. We would have hosted the whole everything up to the Elite Eight, and we were in practice like 2 days before the tournament starts. We were supposed to play Finley, I think it was, and all of a sudden, coach goes, "All right, y'all, bring it up." Like out of nowhere, like bring it up, and it was him, and he just got the call that the season's canceled. Like the school's sending everyone home, whatever. So I go home. Obviously that's heartbreaking. It was the first time in I think 25 years the school's ever been a 1 seed. Like honestly, I think we had all the tools to make a really good run at it too. But I go home, whatever, spend the next 2 months in COVID lockdown, and I think probably a month and a half, maybe 2 months, he calls us into a Zoom saying he took the job at USI where I'm at now. And so basically, not immediately, but pretty shortly after that, I entered the transfer portal just because I went to UIndy because of him. Not and that's not to say I didn't like the school. I love the school. Indianapolis is an amazing city, but I went to UIndy mainly because I was going to be coached by him and I was going to play for him. And so when he left and took that new job, I entered the portal, and a few weeks later he called me and he was like, "Hey, you're welcome here if you want. Like I'd love to take you in here." And so now here I am. When I went there, it was a Division II school still, and now we're in that transition, and it's worked out great for me.
Yeah, definitely. And like kind of going off of what you said too, few people like unless you actually play the game of basketball in college, few people really understand what the transfer portal is like. I'm sure it's probably a little bit easier for you than maybe other players, just because you had maybe an idea of where you wanted to go. But how it was that process of being in the transfer portal?
It's hectic, man. I was talking to, obviously I won't say his name, but one of my buddies plays at a different school, and he was talking about how he might be transferring. And I was told, and I was even when I was entered the portal from the best team in Division II with decent numbers. I wasn't averaging what I'm averaging now, but with decent numbers, in a position that's pretty hard to find. And I think even then, you're getting a lot of calls and a lot of random offers, but a lot of it, like, you don't get to really choose where you want to go at that point, if that makes sense. You kind of are forced into whatever you think is best for you. You kind of have to guess. And what I told him, I was like, think about it. You're young. It's like, so I'm a sophomore. He's a sophomore as well, but so you're a sophomore and playing at a Division I school with barely any stats, like barely playing in the year. But let's say a kid from Alabama wants to transfer with the same numbers as you, which happens all the time right now. Just random guys from Alabama. All these schools are going to want that kid before they even look at your film, just because he went to Alabama and you didn't. And coming from a smaller school in the transfer portal was hard. I had options other than here, but it was hard, especially for me when I did it. Was like I said, peak lockdown, so I couldn't go on any visits. I couldn't meet coaches in person. I literally, it was like this. This was my visit to these universities, and so like being able to just kind of pick what I was comfortable with here, and I was like, yeah, you know what, like even if the school is horrible, it's a hole in the wall, like, which it's not. It's beautiful. I got here. The campus is perfect. But even if it is, like, at least I know what I'll get with the coaching. I know what'll come with the basketball. And, like, there's nothing for me to worry about on that end.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely understand what you're saying about, the whole, picking a kid over Alabama thing. So when I was in Bradley, I won't say his name here, but we had a kid transfer in from LSU. Never played a single minute at LSU, but transferred over to Bradley. And I thought this kid was gonna be all of that, and he was a good player, but he wasn't as good as you would think someone like that would be.
Yeah.
Coming
And, I
from
mean,
such a big school like that.
honestly, like the basketball is good everywhere from Division 1 all the way down to NAIA JUCO level. Basketball is really good. There's guys in there that give you 40 on right now. And honestly, the biggest difference is really like from mid major to high major, I'll say, is that I've noticed from playing with these guys and playing mid major basketball is just the athleticism and the consistency of that with as long as size. So it's like on our bench, if you go 4 or 5 deep into our bench, we're at probably 6'1", 195, like pretty decently athletic, a good, a hell of a basketball player, but not what when we went to Missouri and they brought off 6'7", 220, just as athletic. Like,
Yep.
so I feel like the further you get down the bench and the further you get in the lineups, the more that difference becomes, honestly.
Before we get a little bit more into your college career, I want to go back to high school real quick. Talk about your time at Catholic Central with Coach Meerman, and kind of how do you think playing at Catholic Central helped prepare you to play at the college level?
Yeah, so Coach Meerman, he played for Central Michigan, obviously in college. Was a really good point guard. Went to the NCAA tournament. Uh, also happened to play alongside Chris Kaman,
Mm-hmm.
and him being in a college environment when he was the second guy, the point guard, probably the lead ball handler with a guy like Chris Kaman and like a really ball dominant big who the offense kind of centered around was really big for me because Coach TJ already had a whole, he already had this whole playbook probably this thick that was just ready for everything we needed in order to get me touches, get Marcus touches, get to make big successful. And he helped me grow into in that player and kind of take on that leadership role, which pushed me to be the best player I could have possibly been at that level because if I'm going to tell you how to do something, I better make sure I'm doing it right. Is kind of the message he taught me. How can I tell you to dive on the floor for a loose ball if I'm not going to dive across the floor for a loose ball? How can I tell you to take a charge if I'm not going to take a charge? And it's like, and at the end of the day, for me to become a better basketball player, I think that was the biggest step for me. And he kind of taught me that. And it's the same thing with my coach now at USI. TJ's he's not a coach. You could hand him a blank paycheck every month. He's in that for the kids. He's in that to make a difference with that, and he's in that in it for the love of the game as well. And I look at Coach Meerman as a father figure to me, as family to me. It's like we still talk probably once or twice a week ever since I graduated high school. It's been 5 years, so I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him, man. And the whole Catholic Central community in general, and looking back, that's like probably one of the biggest blessings of my life was my parents trying to make the sacrifice from their pockets and their bank account to send me to Catholic Central just because of the connections I've made and the growth that I've had because of my time there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I fully agree with that. Coach Meerman has also been a huge inspiration to me. I mean, he helped me along with Cougar Ball Radio when I was broadcasting your guys' games my senior year. And he and I have stayed close through then. Has always been a huge supporter of my career, what I've been doing. Diving a little deeper into him, you kind of mentioned, just his love for the game and his love for these kids and, making sure that they become, fantastic players. What do you think really helps create this successful program that he's been able to build over the years?
It's the fact that he holds people accountable from the second they step foot into the program and that gym, from freshman year on up to your senior season. And when you have guys who, I think what we were like 3-17, 3-18, something like that, my freshman year, and that was his first year coaching. And then I think that we went up to about 500 my sophomore year. Then my junior year, we were pretty good. Then my senior year, obviously, we had that run to state championship. And and then look now. Since then, I feel like every team's been right there or won the state championship. So you look at that growth from a team that people are trying to schedule on homecoming night, on senior night, because free win, to a team that's probably one of the best teams in the Midwest, let alone Grand Rapids. And it all starts with the culture that he's built, because now you got kids coming in from 8th grade, freshman year, walking into tryouts and seeing these seniors play basketball the right way, seeing these upperclassmen play basketball the right way, be good kids on and off the court. The same thing I'm talking about, diving on the floor for loose balls, taking charges, doing all the things that don't get that much love from the outside looking in is it's addicting to a program. It's contagious in a program. And now you got guys who are coming in freshman year at however old the freshman is now, at 14, 13, 14. And, you got these kids coming in at 14 and for 3 years watching these other kids who have been trying to learn this for 4 years. So they're learning this the whole time along, and all of a sudden they're a senior and they're teaching the freshmen right back over again. And that culture that he's built is one that I think will stay in place, for years, even long after he's gone, just because the way he's been able to teach these kids and help them grow into being good young men has made a difference on the basketball court that people don't even get credit for.
His program has built up a lot of D1 athletes too. I mean, you have yourself, Marcus, Jackson Karazinski. I know you're close with the Karazinski family, and many many others. But along with this, you were also during your time able to play alongside some really great players. I mean, I just mentioned Marcus Bingham played at Michigan State, now trying to make it in the NBA. Even other players that didn't stick with basketball. I mean, Jalen Mayfield and Mike Brown, who both went on to play D1 football and now are both in the NFL. What can you say about just the kind of players that you've been able to play with in your high school career?
My transition to college, I think, went a little bit better than most because I was able to play as a freshman because of the level of athletes I was surrounded by all throughout high school. I mean, you just listed 4 or 5 guys right there, and that's not even a quarter of them. List of people playing college basketball now are Austin Braun, Devin Boyd, Michael Bingham, Marcus in the NBA. I'm playing college basketball. KK is going to play basketball right now. Fat Fat's going to play basketball. Jack Karazinski. I mean, I could keep going forever. And when you're surrounded by guys like that are as competitive as them, as good of basketball players as them, and when everyone's as close as we all are, it kind of forces you into the gym. Like when we're hanging out, we're going to the gym, we're playing ones. Like that's what we're doing. And because we're also competitive, because we all want to win so bad, when we're playing, we're not really that cool right now. Like me and Austin Braun are best friends. I call him my brother. Like we talk every single day, but when we're in the gym together, we're playing ones. We've gotten into fights over the dumbest things ever. But that's just because that's just because we both want to win so bad, and that's helped me transition to college a lot. And also the way that TJ he kind of runs practices and he runs his program is really similar to, obviously it's not as time consuming, but it's really similar to how college programs run, in the sense that you got to have discipline. You can't just come show up and play a game. You got to have discipline. You got to give to basketball so that you can get something in return. You got to earn your keep, and learning that when I was that young was probably one of the biggest things for me.
Yeah, definitely. And going off of that too, one more player I'd like to mention before we move on was actually a player that you played against. And I remember broadcasting this game. Our arena was packed, and it was just such a fun game to watch and be able to broadcast. But Xavier Tillman, who obviously would go on and play 4 years at Michigan State and now is a solid role player for the Memphis Grizzlies. What can you say about Xavier and how it was being able to play against someone like that who's, been seen as NBA level talent?
Yeah. First of all, Xavier's like, we don't talk very much. We've talked here and there over the years, but he's one of like the most stand up, best dudes you'll ever meet. Real down to earth guy. I think he got married a few years ago and obviously started a family since then. And Xavier's one of those guys where you don't hear anything bad about him off the court. You never hear anything negative. It's always him going to work, how hard he plays, how hard he works, how good of a dad he is to his family. And being able to play against him, I remember that game. I think they ended up beating us pretty bad, but that game, I remember going into it and all the hype around that game was kind of one of those moments where I was like, all right, like I can actually make something happen out of this. I can make something come out of this. And you know, it was cool to walk in that gym and see it as packed as it was. It was cool not to be able to park close to the school when I showed up 2 hours before the game because it was so busy. And I think that was kind of the turning point of where we started getting a lot more support from the city and the school when we played in that game. And to be blessed in Grand Rapids to be able to play against guys that talent level. I mean, Dwayne Washington's on that team, James Beck's on that team. Dwayne's in the NBA right now too, and James will be playing professionally somewhere next year. He's still in college, but um, to be able to play with guys like that night in, night out in Grand Rapids, from a high school 10 minutes down the road is something no one else can say. Really, it's and basketball in Grand Rapids does not get enough credit at all.
Hmm. You know what? I was trying to think of who else was on that team because I knew there was one more that was in the NBA, and it was Dwayne
Yeah,
Washington. You're right, and now he's playing for, I believe the
I think
Suns. I believe the
he
Suns.
Suns on a two-way. So
Yeah, and that's fantastic to see. I mean, he was a great player in high school at Ohio State, even though that's
yeah.
absolutely disgusting that he went there. Uh, um, but no, he's a fantastic player, and it's great to see that he's getting some recognition too. Now, Jacob, if it is okay with you, I would like to take a second to talk about your dad.
Yeah,
Now, I have also met your sister, who is a very, very nice woman. And it seems like your family is really close, but unfortunately, your father did pass away in 2017, going into your senior year of high school. But it kind of created this, quite beautiful support system around you and your family. And I remember the hashtag Rip Southside all over Catholic Central students platforms. Where did the name Southside come from, and what did having that support mean to you in your career?
yeah. So R.I.P. Southside. The nickname Southside is from my dad and used to own a restaurant, a bar in the Grand Rapids area called Southside Jimmy's. And growing up, my whole life I was in Grand Rapids, and every time I went anywhere, if I met someone that was above 30 years old, they'd say, "Oh, you're Southside son, like you know Southside." Like I used to go to the restaurant all the time. I always used to go to the bar. And so that's how that nickname started. And it's funny because now my mom owns a flower shop in Breton Village, right outside of East Grand Rapids, and it's called Southside Flower Market. She kind of took that name and opened that in his honor, and they've been doing amazing. They've been probably doing better than she ever even thought they would, which is really cool to see. And that's because the work they do there is better than anyone that's I've ever seen. So it's not surprising to me. It's to her, but she, with Catholic Central when he passed and the Grand Rapids community in general, the level of support that I got from that and that my family got from that was it's hard to explain because unless you've kind of been there, it doesn't make sense because at the end, like I had people reaching out to me and showing up at my house and dropping off meals that I had never talked to in my entire life. I had people showing up to my game when I played at Grand Valley my sophomore season. There was more UIndy red shirts that said RIP Southside on the front of them than there was blue in the stands for Grand Valley. And the banner they put above the student section that said Jimmy's Corner, and the student section being filled every night. Austin Braun making sure every break we did in the huddle was Southside on three. And the level of support, then that's a fraction of it. The level of support that I got from that community is honestly probably the only reason I was even able to play basketball that year and play basketball anymore, because when something like that happens and you're on a visit for basketball, now all of a sudden basketball is not your escape anymore. Basketball is where it happened. Basketball was the issue. And it took a lot for me to get back on the court. I was on the court like pretty shortly after it, but it wasn't easy at all. And the biggest thing that for me was I wanted to make sure that my mom wasn't worried about me, that because she lost her husband. So she I didn't the last thing she needed was to be worried about me and Alex and my sister Alex, because I knew I'd be okay. It hurt. It was a horrible time in my life, but the fact that CC and that community of people was there for me made it 1,000 times easier. And I can't thank that community enough, and for the way that was handled. And the funeral being standing room only was kind of I remember going up there to talk at that funeral and crying, not because I was sad, but I was crying because I got up there and that was the first time I really turned around and saw that the entire church was full, and there's people literally standing in the aisles, people literally standing in the lobby just to be there, even though there's nowhere to sit. The whole parking lot's full, like. And it was moments like that where I was like, wow, like, me playing basketball right now is really bigger than basketball. Like, this is a chance for me to show that no matter what happens in my life, no matter what happens to anyone, you can figure it out, and you can use that to become a better person, become better at whatever it is, whatever your basketball is. You can use whatever happened to you to become better at that and use that as an escape. And I grew up really fast when that happened. I feel like I kind of realized that there's no time to mess around anymore. Like, there's because he was young, and I realized there's no time to mess around anymore. There's no time to I can't waste time if I can be taken like that. If anyone can be taken from you at any moment, there's no time to waste anymore. So that was special, man. That seeing how that community was really special.
It's truly amazing to see somebody be able to make such a big impact in a community like your dad did. The reception at that church, just to be able to see how many people loved your dad. But I remember us talking about this before recording, and you want to help other people that have gone through what you've gone through. So I guess what message kind of do you want to send with RIP Southside?
Yeah, it, not all right. So it happened. It had when he passed away in 2017. I remember, you know, it. I was sitting in the hospital. We went waiting for my sister to get there with my grandma, and it was just me and my mom. And I remember sitting there, and I was mad. When they were trying to resuscitate him, they were trying to make me leave the room, and I was refusing to leave the room because I wanted to be there for him. I couldn't let him be alone during that time, and it was it was hard for me because that was my guy that I went to with everything. That's who gave me my advice. That's who taught me how to deal with a young man, how to deal with bullies, how to study right, how to work hard, how to play football, how to play basketball. Like, the list goes on and on. And so I lost that. I felt so alone. Like, and the thing with that is, like, everyone was like, "Why did you never go like talk to someone? Why'd you never do anything with anyone, professionally?" And to me, that's just, I think that stuff like that's a great resource for a lot of people. But for me personally, I just sharing my problems with a random stranger and trying to talk to someone who I've never met before wouldn't have helped me really. And, so I was stubborn and I got stuck on just sitting there being alone. And, there's a while in my life where I sat there and I was feeling sorry for myself. I was a victim. I was thinking, why me? And it was kind of seeing the way the community reacted that woke me up to the fact, like I said, that life's too short for me to waste time because of the hand I was dealt. It's too short for me. Anyone can be taken at any moment. I need to start taking people less for granted and stop taking what I have for granted. And the message I like to send with the whole RIP Southside, my whole story is that no matter what happens to you, no matter what hand you're given, no matter what tragedy you go through, at the end of the day, love is always stronger. It's always, you can always get through it. You can always grow from it. And as big as a bump as that was in my life, as big of a step back I took for a while because of that. Um, I think I'm a better man because of it. I'm a better basketball player because of it. I'm better in a million ways because I went through that, and I would give everything away that I've had to have him back, yes. But that's not possible. So what can I do? What can you do now to make it so it isn't for nothing? It was. I remember shortly before he passed, I was talking to him about, and he kind of sat me down and was really like, look, like, what do you want basketball to do for you? Like, how far do you want to go with this? And I told him I want to play professional basketball. I want to have a chance to play in the NBA someday. I want to, no, I want to pay my bills with basketball. Like, that's what I want to do. And he was like, well, what are you doing to make that happen? Like, because he's like, at the end of the day, you need to give everything you have into this if you want that to be what you do, because someday the ball is going to stop bouncing. God forbid I land funny one day and hurt my knee. And, and if I look back before that conversation, if I look back, I didn't give everything I had to basketball. But, at this point in my career, knock on wood, if it just all ended tomorrow and it all ended, right when he hung his phone up, I could look back at my career now and be like, all right, I gave everything I had. It didn't work out. I didn't end how I wanted it to end, but I gave every ounce of me. I gave every ounce of my energy, effort, and mental into this. And, that's okay with me if I don't make it then. But from talking to him, he was really big on the fact that no matter what happens, if that's what you want to do, you got to give everything you have. You gotta go all in, burn the boats, and make it happen. So
Now, Jake, kind of just moving into your college career, it really seems like you've made some great improvements in your game, especially as a rebounder. What can you say about your growth as a player over the years?
yeah, I, my thing is I play hard. Like I pride myself on, no matter how you can be 1,000 times a basketball player as me, I pride myself that you'll never play harder than me on the court. You'll never get to the ground for a ball for me. You'll never chase a rebound down before I do. And I kind of take that personal. I remember being recruited in high school, and a lot of Division I coaches would tell me that, oh, you aren't at. I don't think you're going to be athletic enough to rebound at our level. I don't think you're going to be athletic enough to defend at our level. And I sit here now, and I'm point one behind first place in the nation right now, and I have the most total rebounds in the nation right now. So I kind of play with a constant chip on my shoulder, because naturally I was never jumping higher than everyone in the gym. I never had, like, I got the gift of height, but I was never tall. Like, once you get to college, you're not that much. I'm not that tall anymore. Like, it's crazy because I'll hang out with people outside that don't play basketball, and like they'll think I'm Yao Ming, but I step on a basketball court, I'm looking a lot of dudes eye to eye. And for me, the biggest thing that helped me make these strides in my career really was the weight room. Once I started taking the weight room and the kitchen, once I started taking the weight room serious, I took a big step. But once I started taking the weight room and my diet seriously, I I took jumps and strides, and had the year I had this year where I was having multiple 2020 games and all those cool stats and winning all these big games. And all of that's because I took my diet serious and my body serious. And because of that, I was able to give so much more than I ever was to this game.
Now, we did just mention your skills as a rebounder, and you really did show those skills this season. Not only averaging more rebounds than points, which is just crazy, but you also finished second in the entire NCAA in rebounds, like you just mentioned, with 13 per game. I mean, that's a crazy number that you don't see too often. So, was this really a goal going into the season?
Yeah, Division II last year, I think I finished second in the nation, and it's the background actually on my lock screen right now. There's a tweet from I'm obviously not gonna call him out on this, but there's a tweet from a sports reporter in Indiana that said the biggest question now is how Polakovich will play against a Division I opponent. And he probably didn't mean that. Actually, I know he didn't mean that as a dig at me, but the way my mind works, the way I am, stuff like that. And like I said, I always have that constant chip on my shoulder where yeah, I felt like this year was personal to me, not only because I want to win every game, I want to play as good as I can every game, but because I didn't have any Division I offers coming out of high school. I had a couple when I was in the transfer portal, but you know, I didn't have any coming out of high school. And every coach that I played this year probably watched my film at some point, and and was told their staff, no, I don't think he's good enough to play for us. I don't think he'll be good for us. And so I go out every year, every game this year, and play as hard as I can. And I can't control if I make every shot that night. I can't control that. I can miss. I can go for 12, but I can get 20 rebounds if I play my ass off and play as hard as I possibly can for all 40 minutes. And I can control that. I can't control the shooting. I can't control everything else. But I'm big on controlling what I can control. So, and that's one thing that I feel like I've really learned how to consistently, no matter what's going on in the game, consistently put pressure on the glass.
Yeah, definitely. And, kind of going off of that too, I remember, when I first started getting into basketball back in around 2013, 2012 ish, one of my favorite players to watch was Kevin Love, especially in his Timberwolves days. Not only was he a very efficient scorer, but he was one of the best rebounders in the game as well. And I've seen him talk about his rebounding and how it kind of takes a level of instinct and kind of knowing where to be before the shot even hits the rim. So what do you think kind of makes yourself such an effective rebounder?
Like I said a minute ago, the weight room, I've gotten stronger. And because I've gotten much stronger than, I feel like I'm probably the strongest in our conference that I played this year. Just, and that's not even cocky at all. I just feel like it was. And because of that, I'm kind of, my thing is, like I said, I don't play with my head above the rim at all times. And if you watch my film, a lot of my rebounds are from like you said, having the instinct to get to the right spot on the other side of the rim and just kind of wedging whoever's trying to box me out under the rim and going up and getting them. And a lot of times it's a lot. I'll get a lot of rebounds actually from if I don't think I can grab it, I'll tip it somewhere where I think I can. Um, but really, the biggest thing is consistently going after every single shot, every single rebound, every single ball that bounced off that rim. I believe belongs to me because it's exhausting for them. I can only imagine how tired it is trying to keep me off the glass because I'm exhausted going for them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like if you're every single play, you have to worry about me running up your back and trying to get that rebound. It's not something you want to do for 40 minutes straight. And it's a physical game. It's the way I like to play it. I'm not dirty at all, but it's a physical game. It's a contact sport, and I got to use what I'm good at to get advantages. So
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, going off of that too, we were talked about your favorite players growing up, but has there been a player that's maybe inspired you to become such a great rebounder?
really, honestly, the people that really inspired me on rebound are my parents, and it's funny. I remember even like IHM middle school basketball, Gracie level basketball, and I'd finish our games and we'd win whatever. I'd have 20 points and I'd get in the car and my mom and dad would be mad I didn't have enough rebounds. They'd say I was lazy rebounding that day. And all the way to high school, it was like, oh, I'm like, Mom, I had 17 and 7 tonight. She's like, well, why didn't you get a double double? Like, and it's not, and that makes it sound like they didn't care that I've had a good game, but it was always kind of this joke in our family where it was because I think they realized that that's something that's all effort based and and you can control and that and them being on me like that is exactly in the perfect expression of how their love works, and it's tough love, and you can always be better. It's like, yeah, you did a good job, but you could have done better. And I think they really inspired me to kind of take that rebound role serious.
Now, Jake, this is technically your senior season. Like, I know you do have a tournament that you guys are getting ready to play for. However, you were redshirted one year, and with everything that happened during COVID, do you have another year of eligibility? And if so, do you plan on using it?
Look, all right, so I don't know if I have one, but no, I will not be using it if I do. But the reason I don't know, I started laughing when you asked that because it's a joke around here because no one knows. Like I've asked 1,000 people, and no one can give me an actual answer. And my thing, the thing that bothers me is I'm like, at some point, someone just has to make a decision and then roll with it. Like someone out there has to know, right? But the reason it's weird for me is so when I transferred, it was an in-conference transfer at the time. When my coach went to USI, they were both in the GLVC.
Okay.
So I transferred in conference. At the time in the NCAA, if you transfer in conference, you have to sit out a season automatically. No waiver, nothing. So I was technically ineligible that season. I dislocated my shoulder my sophomore year, like halfway through, and just played with it. My labrum was torn, rotator cuff was screwed up. Just kind of played with it, wrapped it with a brace, all that stuff. And so I was like, all right, well, I can't play this year. I might as well just get the surgery. Like, I might as well get that taken care of because I can't play. I scheduled the surgery, go into surgery about 2 weeks later, wake up from surgery, and I'm scrolling through Twitter like that day, and I see a tweet about how now every single transfer can play. No, you just have to do a waiver and you're eligible. There's no more ineligible transfers because they changed the transfer rule. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, like this is kind of crazy. And then I see later, whatever, they come out with the fact that this year doesn't count for players to get an extra year. And what I've been told from our compliance people that they said was they weren't certain about was that I don't get the COVID year because I was technically ineligible that year and because I was technically injured that year. But I wouldn't use it anyways just because I'm graduating this year. I've been in college for 5 years. I basically had to restart when I transferred, which was the most frustrating thing ever because I was like I was a dean's list student all throughout college, and I was like, why am I retaking classes? Like, this makes absolutely no sense to me. And, I'm just kind of burnt out of it. And whether it's basketball or I work in the business world, I'm ready to move on to a career and get out of school for that part and just kind of start my life. So
Yeah, definitely. And, kind of just last question going off of that, Jake, but, once the season is over, once you do graduate, what is next for Jacob Polakovich?
yeah, so for me, my next step, I'm signing with an agent. I can't say who that'll be until our season ends and I kind of figure all that out. But I'll be signing with an agent and entering my name in an NBA draft. I won't get drafted probably, obviously, but entering into that, it kind of opens a lot of holes, a lot of doors to go down. And I'm gonna do everything I can to play professional basketball for as long as I can. Whether that's in the G League and I work my way up into the NBA, or whether that's in Europe and I work my way up into the Euro League, playing Monaco or Venice or Barcelona, or I play in Australia or Japan. There's a million places you can play. There's a million places you can make a lot of money for playing. And I want to try and do that for as long as I can. And it's once my body tells me I'm done, or once I'm just once God tells me I'm done, once the ball stop bouncing, I'll come back and I'll use my degree somewhere. I'm not sure what I'll do yet, but my big thing in school is I wanted to take my school serious and my all the academics serious, because at the end of the day you can't play basketball till you're 65 years old. And I wanted to take it serious because my thing is, if I'm here, econ at 8 a.m. might not be the most exciting thing in the world, but if I'm here, I might as well do it right. I might as well get something out of it rather than just being miserable sitting there at 8 a.m. learning about macroeconomics. So I kind of, and the business is interesting to me, running a business. My mom's running a business right now. I've kind of seen how that works and they've been successful, and I'm excited. I don't know what I'll do when it's done, but I'll do something business.
Yeah, definitely. Well, shoot, we might have to get you on the Grand Rapids Gold, maybe play in the G League a little bit.
Hey, I wouldn't complain.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and good luck in that upcoming tournament.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me again. It was fun.
Yeah, of course. That's gonna wrap everything up for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the BaseLINE podcast. Thank you so much to Jacob Polakovich for coming on and talking about his basketball career. It's so cool. Like, to be honest, like, Jake and I didn't really talk that much in high school, but it's been a really amazing being able to follow his career and see him have so much success in college. It's fantastic. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, share with a friend, and if this is your first time ever watching the BaseLINE podcast, go check out my other videos as well. Put a lot of time and effort into them. As well as this, if you enjoyed the music, go check out Hidden Harmony. Link for them will be in the description as always. And with all that being said, guys, thank you again so much for tuning into this episode of the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, Ben Newman, and we'll catch you guys next time.